All right, so I was driving to work yesterday, and for some reason, AOC's speech at ASU over the weekend came up as the number one recommended thing for me to watch on YouTube. I can only imagine why, because her speech at that rally sounded like everything I've been saying for the last 5 years. It was a MillennialSteam ripoff speech. And to some extent, I felt that the crowd should have been chanting MillennialSteam, not AOC. But this is the part that really stuck out at me. If you work full time, you should be able to afford a life. If you get sick, you shouldn't go bankrupt. If your parents die, the world shouldn't collapse around you. And no, your housing shouldn't be a slot machine for Wall Street to gamble on. I have said all of those things for so many years that I've turned blue in the face from saying the same thing. You guys come here into my comment section and you tell me all the time. You say the same thing every day. Well, conditions aren't changing, and if you're not willing to get up and go out there and force that change, then you need to shut up. Because that's really what it comes down to. Is AOC was saying things to a crowd of 100,000 people there that everyone wanted to hear. That it's not rich for people to treat poor people the way that they do. With that said, let's get into my monologue. Your boss isn't rich because they work harder than you. They're rich because you do. Every hour you grind, every task you finish, every shift you survive, it's your sweat that builds their wealth while you can barely pay rent. They tell you to be grateful for the job, but the truth is, without you, they have nothing. You're not just underpaid, you're being used, exploited, and it to some extent humiliated in the workplace. There is no dignity in work for poor people because wealth isn't created by people who work. It's created by people who own things. And if there's one thing we know about the proletariat is we're not capitalists and we never will be. We're never going to own real estate. We're never really going to own our car. And our jobs own us. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. When I come home from work, I don't feel good about myself. I feel horrible. I feel horrible when I have to leave for work in the morning. I feel horrible when I'm at work. And I think I feel the most used as I'm driving home from work as my rear end feels like it just can't take anymore. It's so sore from being fleeced that I can't sit down when I get home. And you put yourself on repeat for 60 years and that's all you have left. I think she pointed out the fact that there isn't going to be any retirement for most of us. Retirement's an illusion. As I say all the time, my retirement is laying flat in a ditch face forward in mud. That's how I plan to retire. And with that said, let's get into our 4 talking points. Your poverty is their business model. Big companies depend on underpaid workers to keep profits high. The lower your paycheck, the bigger their bonus. Your struggle isn't an accident. It's how they stay rich. And anytime someone points out the fact that you're not rich, all they like to do is use stupid phrases like avocado toast or expensive coffee or the fact that you are bad with money. It's always a justification for why people can't have nice things. For me, I think it really comes down to a lack of financial education, which they will never teach you in public school because it's not required. Public school creates factory workers. They want a nation of workers, not thinkers. They don't want people to realize that they're screwed and rise up and start breaking crap everywhere and starting things on fire. That's not what they want. They want loyal sheeple. Even when they open the door to the pen, the sheeple don't know what to do. They don't understand what freedom is. So they just look around at each other, do what other people are doing, buy the same name brand clothing. It has gotten to the point where the domestication process has worked too well against the proletariat. Talking point number 2. They can afford to pay you more. They just don't want to. CEOs rake in millions while claiming they can't afford raises or health care for employees. If there's money for shareholder dividends and executive retreats, there's money for you. This is something that I run into with my coworker every time we go to the executive suites. He looks around at all the waste and then says to me, "MillennialSteam, why can't we get a raise?" And I just look at him and I tell him, look at this. Look at the luxury that you're surrounded by. Impressive furniture, an entire area of just pure beauty comparatively to where we work down there in the scum, in locations chosen for the low rent of the land. And that's what it comes down to. In fact, I asked a lady that's in charge of doing of upgrading the site locations, and she says, yes, we picked the worst of the worst places because number one, that's where our customers are, and number two, it's what we want to pay. But when it comes to the people that matter, the C-suite, it has to be beautiful, it has to be perfect, and the people who work there are pretty. Down here on the ground, for the vast majority of the people that I'm around on a daily basis, all ugly people to the to the nth degree. You can feel the poverty in the air when I arrive at work. You look through the parking lot. I probably have one of the best looking Promobiles in the parking lot, which goes to show that everyone is broke. I was talking to one of the office managers from another state the other day, and she started out the conversation with, "I'm so broke, I have to start shopping at the 99-cent store." And this is the highest paid person on the ground there, complaining about the high prices at the 99-cent store. People are getting ripped off. You're getting ripped off by your employer. You're getting ripped off by your banks. You're getting ripped off by your landlord. Hell, even that person that you call your significant other is ripping you off because all we have are transitional relations. Susie Rottencrotch out behind the Taco Bell isn't so much interested in your bump and dump, but rather what's in your wallet. And at the end of the day, Johnny Sixpack has enough money to get himself a six-pack of beer, a hot dog, and hopefully a bottle of creamy stuff so that he can keep he can keep Susie lathered up because that's all Johnny Sixpack really wants. I mean, we're a simple people. When it comes down to what regular people want, we want the comfort of having job security. We want a non-roach infested home. And we want a car that could possibly get us from A to B without exploding or shutting off or catching on fire or who knows what could happen in your Promobile. But we don't ask for much. And that's what really bothers me, is that the proletariat isn't out here asking for millions of dollars. We're asking for comfort. We're asking for a living wage. We're asking for the dignity of being a human being, the dignity of being able to pay your bills. And this is something AOC touched on in her speech over and over again, is that we just want to live. We're not asking to be millionaires. We just want to be comfortable. In a society, we need to demand better human rights for people that work. No 40-hour-a-week person should be living in their car. But guess what? That's a distinct possibility as rents keep going up. Yesterday, while I was looking at the news, I kept getting advertisements for luxury apartments around ASU. And I'm like, I don't live here because I can afford to live in a luxury apartment. Build more luxury housing, apartments, and townhouses when the vast majority of people are living here with me in Roachville. It doesn't make any sense. All right, talking point number 3. They blame you so you don't blame them. You're told to work harder, budget better, while billionaires avoid taxes and gamble with your future. It's easier to shame broke worker than to admit the entire system is rigged. AOC in her speech kept saying the system's rigged, the system's rigged. If you don't believe the system's rigged, then why are there no opportunities? Why does the wage cage have no ladder? The wage cage doesn't have a ladder up. It has a trap door underneath it so you can fall lower and lower into the scum of being a human being. Because no one's going to lift you up out of the wage cage, but you truly know that you can fall into lower and lower debts of poverty until you're on the street and you meet your maker on the side of the road at a bus stop. You wouldn't believe how many people come to a bitter end on the side of the road because we don't even make places where we want those people to associate. In fact, I was talking to someone over the weekend and she told me that both Phoenix and Tempe had outlawed encampments. Just because you tell people that they can't sleep outside doesn't mean that they're not going to sleep outside. If I lost my home today, where am I going to sleep? In my car until it gets repossessed? On the street? That's where they end up. That's why so many people have to keep looking for somewhere to hide while they're homeless. Because the road back to living indoors isn't easy from becoming homeless. Falling into bad times and having to live in your car is a reality of today. It's not some absurd sci-fi fiction thing that could possibly happen. It's the reality for 40-hour-a-week workers because it's not enough. You can't work harder to break out of poverty when you're making $20 an hour. Again, what does that come down to? It means that the system, that this casino of life has been rigged against you since the moment you were born. Again, why are there pregnant women in my thumbnails and in my backgrounds? Because that's the scam right there. Being born. Being born is the first step towards living your life in extreme poverty, living in survival mode, not being able to get ahead, going to school and still realizing that you can't get ahead. And someone yesterday asked me in the comment section, well, can you talk more about Gen Z? Does Gen Z have an education? Yes. He has a liberal arts education, but he also has mental problems as well. Like it's obvious from day one when I met him, he wasn't functioning with a full deck of cards. Like there's obvious reasons why he hasn't been able to get ahead. And again, the average proletariat person is a person that sells their labor on a daily basis. They're not going to be financial gurus. We're not Dave Ramsey telling you to get a life and buy a house. A lot of people that are out there struggling at the bottom are going to be people who are not capable of incredible things. Most of us are very average people. And the harder your life is, the more likely you are to develop psychological problems. We have a mental health crisis in this country that directly correlates with poverty. Because if you want to create a mental health crisis, you first start with the financial well-being of the people at the bottom. Being poor means you're stressed. Being stressed means you're depressed. Being depressed means that you have anxiety and panic attacks. Therefore, you have the perfect formula, the perfect environment to create a mental health crisis as people can't figure out how to put food on the table every week, especially if you're a single mom. Once you become that single mom, and remember, I grew up with a single mom my whole life. I always say parents as in plural because I don't like being singled out as being that kid who had to live my entire childhood with my mom constantly dating Johnny Sixpack, who was only there for the bump and dump and then was never seen again. All right, let's get into our final talking point. Your labor creates their wealth. You deserve more. Every dollar they earn is made off your time. your back, your mental health. You're not just an employee, you're the engine of the business, and you deserve dignity, not crumbs. Why does this word keep coming up? The dignity of work. No one likes working. There is no dignity in working at the bottom. If they could put us all into chicken suits, if they made the new business casual for the proletariat a chicken suit, that's what we would have to wear into work, just to show everyone around us that we're equally disposable. Essential means disposable. Disposable wages. That's what you get. They're not paying you enough to live. They're paying you enough to go in the other direction. Essential wages aren't meeting essential costs. Essential should mean that essential means you should be able to pay your rent, pay for your food, and pay for your transportation, and still have a significant amount of money left over at the end of the month for a savings, for retirement, for vacations. Instead, essential wages right now means you can possibly pay your rent with everything that you make that month. Let's say you're making $2,000 a month and your rent's $2,000 a month. The only options you have are to rent a room with a bunch of weirdos that you don't want to live with. Poor people aren't fun to live with. I've been there. You don't want to get into that situation with people you don't know. But for the vast majority of people, if you're making $2,000 a month and your rent's $2,000 a month, you have very few options when it comes to feeling any sort of comfort. It's about survival. And the things that people have to do for survival are absolutely disgusting. Accepting the crumbs from society is not something I'm prepared to do. And I don't think it's what you are prepared to do either. Those 100,000 students cheering for AOC reminds me that I've been doing this a lot longer than she has. And I haven't reached that level. I can't reach enough people. The algorithm is making certain that I can't reach more people because every day that I do one of these angry videos is a day in which I should have at least another 100, maybe even 500,000 subscribers by now because I keep saying the same thing and I am not reaching more people simply because my message is unpopular. And I'm tired of being thrown crumbs at and told it's your fault that you're poor. It's always going to be your fault. It's never going to be the fault of billionaires. Oh no, they can do no wrong. But when it comes to a person working full time, it's always your fault for being poor. So stop being poor, proletariat, and start being winners, because that's the message we're getting from policymakers and the rich.